Hi everyone, welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and our guest today is Kaz Clark. Kaz is the Safety and Outreach Manager at the Brattleboro Food Co-op. This is a new position that was created in 2022, and he's going to talk to us about that. He also serves on the board at Groundworks, and he's a member of the Town of Brattleboro Situation Table, which is another thing he's going to tell us about too today. Kaz enjoys hiking the local trails, camping, and he's an avid bowler. He's on the local Tri-State League. He also plays with teammates who are involved with the Windham County Special Olympics. Kaz, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. And you are doing many, many different things. So, although they're all under one roof pretty much at the Brattleboro Co-op. It's an interesting story, so we're going to hear about that. Meanwhile, you were born in Mississippi.
Yes, I was born in Tupelo, Mississippi.
And you moved to Michigan at some point?
I moved to Michigan probably in 1999, I do believe it was.
And you were kind of a kid then?
Yes,
kid.
yeah, 12 maybe. Yeah.
Mississippi to Michigan is a long way.
It was a big one. I spent my summers vacationing there with my grandparents in northern Michigan, so I was pretty used to the area and whatnot. It was a big step winter-wise.
And you have an unusual name, Kaz. So is that a family name?
Yes, well, Kaz is not. My full name is Charles Christopher Clark. I am a fourth generation CCC, so my father was Charles Crockett Clark, his father was Charles Crockett Clark, his father, my great-grandfather, was Carsey Cannon Clark. And apparently, Carsey Cannon Clark was named after a South American tour guide who saved my great-great-grandfather, William Clark, but that's just family lore.
It's a good family. It's a good family story.
Yeah.
It's great.
And then my mom, she just mostly wanted me to be my own person, so she named me Kaz before I was born.
Really?
So I've always gone by Kaz.
Yeah.
Since.
I like it. Yeah, it's good. So Kaz, you've done a lot of traveling, and you've lived in many different places in the country, traveling in Oregon and various other states. Have you been a musician throughout this time?
Yes, I definitely grew up playing music, and my mom was really adamant in helping me pursue that. And then when I moved out to Oregon, I got together with a group of people out there that really honed in on our talents together, and were able to really take off as friends and as musicians and do a lot of cool stuff. Yeah.
What kind of music?
Oh man, that then was mostly Americana, a little country.
Yeah.
But early on, my parents had a band that I played in.
Really?
It was more like classic rock and stuff. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And your mother and father both played?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have siblings?
Yes, I have two sisters.
Yeah. Did they play as well?
No. My oldest sister played a little bit when she was younger, but for the most part, no. You
traveled around as a handyman. You did some arbor care, stone masonry, bartending, that kind of thing. So you're really seeing the country and checking things out.
Yeah, just kind of picking up what I could as I went around to be able to steadily get jobs and move around through my youth.
What was the appeal of that for you?
Of traveling?
Yes.
I feel like coming from Mississippi into Michigan, Mississippi was a lot weather-wise too. It's a very hot place. Michigan, I enjoyed, but the winters were very rough on me, and I think I spent a lot of time traveling trying to find the place that felt comfortable for me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
In your body. Yeah. And in Mississippi, of course, the temperatures were warm and
the summers are intense.
Yeah. And so you ended up in Brattleboro.
Yeah, that was kind of a funny story. I have a friend here who invited me, as a friend that I knew in Oregon, and she had invited me probably to check out the area around 2018. So I started researching the area and thinking about it, but I had not really made a plan to come here yet, as I was still traveling.
Yeah.
But then COVID hit, and I, at the time, didn't have an address because I was traveling for 2 years, and I just kind of had to make a drastic decision and find a place where I wanted to lock down, and this was it. I was like, I'm going to go, and if I don't like it, I'll leave later.
Yeah, but you came from, what was it, the Virgin Islands?
I was in the Virgin Islands.
Right.
I would kind of travel. I spent 2 years kind of following the warmer temperatures around. So I do the Virgin Islands in the winter, and then go back to North Carolina for the spring because it's so beautiful there, and then go back to Michigan and spend time with my family, and then kind of start the circle again.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
And you, as you said, you arrived in Brattleboro on March 14th, 2020, which was like the moment.
That's correct. And I remember coming and landing in town, walking around, checking out some places, and being in places when they were actually getting phone calls like, hey, you're not going to be open on Monday. Yeah. And a lot of those places I went to was like the last day they were open.
That's so bizarre.
It was bizarre. I moved to a ghost town at that point.
Yeah.
I remember just sitting at my apartment window. The first place I got was actually right downtown above Sam's, and just watching the town kind of struggle through everything. All the stores were closed.
Right.
The co-op at that time had a limit to the capacity that they were allowing in, so there was always like a line at the grocery store.
That's right. That's right. And then the Everyone Eats program, when the food would be distributed down on Flat Street, and there was activity, but it's not the kind of thing that you could just go out and meet people.
And there was a lot of protests at that time too, so it was a very tense time.
Interesting. Protests in Brattleboro?
Yeah, that was shortly around the George Floyd time as well.
That's right.
So I'd sit from my apartment window and just watch all this happen.
Yeah.
And it was really, didn't really know what to make of it, because it wasn't just Brattleboro that was like this, it was everywhere. But all of it was new to me, and I didn't really know anybody here. So it was a very intense way to take in a town.
Yes.
And kind of like try to figure out how I would fit in here.
You come out of COVID, and were you working right away?
When I landed in town, the people that I stayed with here, they helped me do get some side jobs to people they knew and whatnot. I then got a job working stonemasonry in Wilmington.
Oh.
That was a lot of drive.
A lot of driving.
I didn't really enjoy that very much, and that job only lasted a couple months, and then after that, just so happened the co-op was hiring a facilities person,
Yes.
And I jumped on that.
When you started at the co-op, you were doing the facilities and maintenance and security, but at some point that kind of rolled into more of a job, and
Yes.
there was more of a call for security and for safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I said, this kind of circles back to COVID and how the co-op had to react to the issues that were happening around the store, with like mask policies and theft, mental health issues. We had to really think about how to continue to be a store open for everybody, without having any dangerous situations, and it was really hard to navigate where they're coming from or what kind of situations they were, so we tended to respond similarly to all situations, but like a trespass, like this is an issue, we have to trespass this person. And that wasn't really sustainable. And I saw a lot of issues that were being treated like they needed to be trespassed, and I felt like there was a different answer for some of those. The biggest one that I like to talk about is there was a person who frequented into the store, usually in the worst weather. It was a mental health issue, and it wasn't really an addiction issue or anything. And they would walk around the store a couple times to get warm, and then they would leave. And there was a series of complaints about this person just being in the store. And some customers and some employees were like, I think we should get this person out of here. And I was like, why? What are they, they're just coming in just to get warm for a minute. I don't think this is someone we should tell that can't come in the store. Maybe we can help cater to his needs a little bit more, and try to make a relationship with them.
You started interacting more
Yes.
with the customers who were coming in.
Yeah, I wanted to find out, when it came to theft, I wanted to find out why people were stealing.
Yeah.
When it came to mental health issues or somebody just being angry, I wanted to find out why. And it can be very cold shoulder from a lot of people, that really dehumanizes people and makes terrible responses. So meeting those people where they're at, figuring out what they need, can really help change how they interact with us as a store,
Right.
And our community.
Right. And just having a relationship,
Yes.
just communicating. You said that one of the things you told me the other day that was really interesting is that you don't need to know their stories or what the truth is, or if they're telling you the truth. You're there to assist people. And so you have a very demarcated job. At the same time, it's very broad. How do you navigate that?
Well, I try to think about what we can and what we can't do for this person. If it's a connection I can make to another caseworker or outreach thing, I'm happy to do that. If they're hungry, I'm happy to provide something. A lot of times that comes with, I have all this going on, this happened to me, the whole story of how they got there. And some of that isn't necessary to get them what I need to get them. And I don't take it, I'll listen to it and let them speak to me, but I don't take that part to heart so much as the solution is the goal.
Right. And you described it as having firm compassion.
Yes.
Or empathy in action.
Yes.
And I think also being under the aegis of the co-op. You're not just a person walking on the streets or a person who happens to be somewhere who can help. You're actually representing the co-op, but you're also in that environment. So you're also seeing a lot of people every day coming and going.
And that's also important. And it's like in the work that our department does, is the huge goal here is also to make the co-op a place that feels safe to people.
Right.
The customer experience is very important.
Yeah.
And even though I have to interact with a lot of people on site, the respect that we get for the co-op and for its staff has changed through building these relationships.
So you think that customers have picked up on this, have known about it?
Yes. There's a lot of feelings about it, and it's all understandable. There's some positive feedback about it, and there's some negative feedback. But again, it's really hard to be everywhere at once in that area, and things still happen, and still can be bothersome. We try to respond to as much as we can. But I think since we've started this department to where we are now, there's a drastic change.
Oh, that's so good. That's really good to hear. Ellen Pratt did a really great article about you in the Commons this fall. And I think it's the first time that a lot of us had heard about you and knew what you were doing. And it was so helpful, I think, to the community to know that you were there, and reassuring as well, because you are connected to so many organizations in town. And I know that a lot of what you do, as you said, is connecting people to where they need to go, finding out enough of their story to set them on a path somewhere. You're collaborating with Groundworks, HCRS, the Department of Health, Youth Services, the police on the streets, and Edible Brattleboro.
Yes. Another
great organization.
Yes, we have this year really kind of got off and running in a collaboration together that seems to be working really well. They had already been making soup at the store for quite a while. On Sundays, they get a group and use our community kitchen to use food that they got from Foodworks or from growing in the gardens.
Yes, people who had extra food from their gardens. Yeah,
and they would make soup, and they're also freeze drying soup, which is really cool.
Oh, cool.
But they came to me and we collaborated in a sense where now they're making soup every Sunday, and they provide me with usually about 3 gallons of soup every Sunday. And then on Sundays on our patio from 1 to 3, we hand out soup to anybody that needs it.
So great.
We have a warming station there. We have coffee available. We have a lot of people that come up and like, what is this? Is this soup? Like, who's this for? I'm like, are you hungry? It's for you.
Well, one thing that's great about hearing all this, Kaz, is that I did not know, for one thing, that the Brattleboro had a community kitchen.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
And that's upstairs.
Yes, we have a community kitchen and a community room upstairs that is available to be reserved by shareholders in our community. But yeah, we have, like I said, Brattleboro comes up there every week. They use that space, or that stove, our utensils and whatnot to help make their soups.
It's so great. And you're giving food to many people every day.
Yes.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that and how you're able to do that?
It's taken a long time to get where we're at. It started as soon as almost before our department. When we were dealing with thefts, we were trying to figure out, we were talking to somebody and looking at the theft as what it was. Like, is this a bottle of wine, or is this a biscuit or a small sandwich?
Right.
Like, what do they need?
Yeah.
And communicating with people, like, hey, you stole that. And they're like, yeah, I know, I'm sorry. I was like, are you just hungry? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, let me get that for you. no, you can't do that here, but we'll find a way to assist you. So that's how it started, and it kind of became unsustainable to continue to do that, to buy food for people. It was hard for us to afford. So the department was always brainstorming and trying to find solutions to get as much food available while spending as little amount of money.
Yeah.
And then the employee that I work with, Jeff Reynolds, him and I collaborated on ideas, trying to figure out what we could do, and he came up with our pizza program. So we have 2 pizzas we give out every day. They're just cheese pizzas. It's 6 slices per pizza.
Yep.
So it's 12 slices a day we give out for free to anybody that needs it. And then from there, we kind of grew, like, what else can we provide that helps people? Water was a big one this summer.
Yeah.
We had a water container that we provided for people.
Right.
And at this point, we provide food basically from 8:30 to 6 p.m. There's food of some sort. It may not be a meal, it may not be a slice of pizza, it might be a granola bar, but we'll be able to hand something to
Yes.
somebody
Yeah.
that is hungry.
And how is that working in terms of numbers of people coming to you?
Definitely depending on what time of the month it is.
Yes, checks
Yeah.
coming in the mail. Yep.
There's definitely times where we absolutely get overrun by this,
Yeah.
which is why we have our boundaries on it.
Yeah.
I can't just continue to make pizzas all day. I do 1 pizza at noon, and I do 1 pizza at 3.
Yeah.
And you can come show up and get that if you like. And if we don't have that available, we're able to hand out a muffin or something.
The busyness of your job sometimes is a little bit overwhelming, and you were saying that sometimes you feel like one of those telephone switchboard operators.
Absolutely. It's really, I try to come into the day with a plan, and sometimes that plan works, and sometimes the day just takes me where it's going to take me, and I just have to respond to what's happening in our environment.
Right. You're right. And the other thing about your job and who you are is that because you're not a nonprofit, because you're not affiliated with HCRS or any other organization, you can help and collaborate in ways that other organizations cannot.
Yes, and that was a big start of our department at the time in 2022. A lot of the outreach caseworkers that we have available now weren't available. Still coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
People had shut down a lot, and they're trying to figure out how to come back to the community and meet people where they're at, but they hadn't, the wheels weren't moving correctly yet.
Right.
So that's why I was kind of able to take on a few things myself that to provide solutions for people that they weren't able to get in other places.
Yes, right. And they know to come to you now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And sometimes, like, one of the things I help people do is try to get their identification back. If we want people to help themselves and get their lives moving, it's a crucial tool.
Right.
So I saw that as absolutely something that I could help do, and sometimes it can be very tough. Somebody has nothing.
Right.
And we have to start from scratch, and sometimes it can be as easy as, like, I had an ID that I lost it, I just need renewed.
Yeah, and I think, this is one point I think that that is so important for folks to know is that many people have nothing. They have nothing. They might have a tent if they're lucky. So there's that whole piece of just climate alone. But when you think about things, in order to do this or to do that, you need identification, which a lot of people don't have. You need a phone, really, to be able to be in touch. Where do you get your mail? If you're lucky enough to have access to a computer, how can you get Wi-Fi? So you help people with those practicalities.
Yes, absolutely. And that was another thing we did. We noticed a lot of people who had phones could only use them with Wi-Fi. And we were actually getting an influx of people against our building outside that were just trying to get our internet connection to make a phone call connection.
Right.
And that became, we started getting a little bit of congestion around the front of our store, and there was some concern from customers and staff and myself. So something that the general manager let me do is I got a Wi-Fi booster, and I boosted our Wi-Fi all the way to the park across our parking lot so people could be there and make their connections.
And that's working out.
It's helped, absolutely.
Yeah. There's no one answer to any one of these problems. Right. Yeah. You also are working closely with the police on the street.
Yes, I have a lot of relationships with a lot of the officers.
Yeah.
We do very well together. I think Officer Washburn is probably my biggest collaborator on the
Yeah.
streets, and I think he's a really important person in our town and the way that he reacts to things.
Yeah, yeah. And people seem to respect him.
Yes.
Lots of different kinds of people really respect him.
I honestly think he can be more of a social worker than a police officer for people that need it.
We have all of these organizations and we have all of these acronyms in the community that we use. But when it comes down to it, and I think that Ellen brought this out in her article, is someone said, I think it's one of the police officers, were saying, yes, we need, mental health workers and, all of these different people, but we also need people like Kaz in our communities, people who can just be there and be themselves. And speaking of that, you have two people who are working with you at the co-op. You have two employees. So instead of having no one addressing all of these things, now you have three people.
Yes, and the goal was to have somebody available at the store from open to close 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And it's taken a while to build that.
Yeah.
I started with myself, and then quickly got into my number two guy, Jeff Reynolds, and we had to do it with just us, and we tried to fill as many hours a week as we could, and now we have a third employee who was able to fill that other gap.
I have a feeling that you must have radar, right? You're kind of always taking the temperature of things and how things are going.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
I'll spend a lot of time, and people probably see me do this. I'll spend a lot of time just outside of the store, just watching, and trying to see issues before they come to the store, or see people that are having problems. And there's a lot of, I can see potential theft coming from a mile away a lot of times, and that a lot of that I get from just standing out front.
Yeah. And assessing.
Yeah.
You're assessing a lot. Let's talk about the situation table, because this is something new. I'd never heard of it. And I guess that it's something that was sort of created by some people in Canada. And I think that one of the things is that their goal is to get the stakeholders in the community together to talk about, they call it situation because it's something that's not an impenetrable problem in the community, but something that needs to be addressed now.
At the situation table, has the police force, the fire department, EMTs, all caseworkers, HCRS, Groundworks, the town manager. We all get together, and I say we, but it's mostly them. I don't really have like a stakeholding seat in this position, but get together, find out people that are having issues in our community, and figure out how to get real solutions for them. Because all the people in that room are the people that make those solutions, and we communicate that together and find real solutions.
Yeah, and I know it hasn't been going very long, but in your experience so far, do you think it's working?
I think it's working wonderfully.
Really?
Yes.
That's so great. That's really great. People listening to each other and talking about, when we're talking about having two new employees with you now, what's your burnout rate like?
It depends. I've really learned not to take things as heavy as I did in the beginning, but that can change day to day. My surprise rate has completely diminished. I'm not surprised by a lot of things at this point, because I've seen a lot of crazy things around our store. But there can be incidents where, say an overdose, or somebody gets harmed outside the store, or I have to intervene, where I have to remind myself to take space after that, maybe even leave work to decompress from it and not try to continue to move into other situations, because I might react poorly.
But you've been able to sort of keep that in balance?
I say for the most part, and it comes and goes, and it comes and goes for all my team members. We never know what we're going to be, and I try to be supportive in that. And I'm like, hey, this happened to you, take a day. I don't want you to come back feeling like you have an obligation to give yourself to this. You need to give some time to yourself.
So the three of you commiserate together, but do you also go to the co-op itself?
We have monthly huddles where we invite staff, and if there's definitely a situation that have happened, we try to communicate that with everybody there. If there's an incident that involves employees, I try to connect with them personally to decompress with them a little bit.
Right.
But
right.
that's also something we're working on. We're always trying to build more of a trauma response team. I have actually collaborated with Rachel Trill from Interactions. She does circle talks to help organize communication between people in a helpful way. And I also have been in connection with Knowles Wentworth about incidents that might happen around the store.
With where?
Knowles Wentworth from HCRS.
Oh, HCRS,
yes,
right.
So we've talked, and I was like, okay, if an incident happens, would you be available to be here at our store to help people decompress through problems?
And that's worked?
Fortunately, we haven't had anything recently this winter, but this trauma response team idea actually came from incidents we had this summer. So it's a work in progress.
Right, and you also are being trained in various ways, as you said, with this situation table, responding. You've got, looking at the town, there's the co-op on one end, and then we've got the library at the other end in terms of public spaces that are well trafficked.
Yes.
Are you in conversation with Star?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. She's wonderful.
Yes, she is.
And I've sat on a couple other committees with her, and I think that they're a great resource for people. As you said, like needing communication or email address or computer or even a telephone. She's provided a lot for people in need in our community. Yeah.
Before the show, I was talking to you about how you landed here in Brattleboro, and all of a sudden everything changed, including what you thought you were going to be doing. And I found that to be true for some other people. Star, I think, being one of them. Coming from Binghamton to this job, and she came at a time. I can't remember when it was. It's been a while now, though. But COVID, and then a lot of the issues that you're talking about, and I think the right people end up in the right place sometime at the right time, and it seems like that's really true.
Absolutely. I wonder a lot how I got here. Most of my career was, I was a bartender for 14 years, which I think that helped prepare me for a lot of different situations, but I never saw myself where I'm at now. Yeah,
you heard a lot of stories, tending bar, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot you didn't know whether to believe or not.
Right.
And so, Kaz, to decompress, you're doing the trails around town. You're doing hiking and camping and bowling. Yep. How's that working for you?
Doing pretty well. I bowl probably a couple times a week. I bowl with friends one night, and then I do the Tri-State League on Thursdays with a group of guys from the Special Olympics. We do pretty well. They're fun. It's a very happy. It's always good for my decompression to bowl with those guys and see how much fun they're having and how positive they are.
That's so great, isn't it? Yeah. Takes you out of your world.
Yes,
a little
absolutely.
Bit. Yeah.
It makes me just kind of appreciate smaller things in that moment, and that definitely makes me forget about the rest of the day that time.
Yeah, because your days are long.
They can be. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention about your job or about anything that you've encountered that you think it would be helpful for people to know about?
There has been a lot of concern about my job and what I am doing for the town by some members of our community, and wondering why I do this, and why we don't have the resources that are able to handle this instead. And I really want to mention how well Brattleboro is doing. It's slow progress, but there's a lot more going on now than there was 4 years ago. And I think that another 4 years from now, we're going to really be able to have a handle on a lot of situations in town very gracefully.
That's really heartening. That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
And you're in the thick of it.
Yes.
You are in the thick of it. And I think that you are the guy you're the guy in the street who knows what's going on. Yeah,
like I said, I feel like what my job has really just turned into is just I'm the connections guy for a lot of different
Right.
resources, whether it be clients
Yeah.
or caseworkers.
Yeah. It's a huge thing, too, Cass. It's a huge thing because we don't lack for resources in this community. We really don't, or people who care and want to help. But I think it's the connective tissue, you know, that's what you're providing.
Right.
And you're not in uniform, you're not associated. It makes a really big difference.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I think, you know, we should all appreciate you a lot. And not only, you know, our appreciation for you, but the fact that it's such a model for other communities. You know, to have like real people doing real things who don't have acronyms behind them.
Right, right, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a really big deal.
And hopefully, you know, I feel like it's become contagious as well.
Oh, good.
Even like with the Edible Brattleboro connection and doing the Super Bowl Sundays, which is what they call it.
Oh, cool.
I've had a lot of people want to volunteer for it, and I actually had a person say, you know, I've seen what you've been doing, and I saw this opportunity, and I felt like I should be doing something as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It's a great compliment and it's a great endorsement
Yes,
as
absolutely.
well. Yeah. Cass, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was great talking with you and hearing all of this information.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks to all of you folks for joining us today and hearing really uplifting stories about Brattleboro and where it's heading and the kind of people like Cass who are making these things happen for all of us. Tune in. We will be back next week. See you soon.